Shabbat Shalom. When I was a young lad, about 10 or 11 years old, back in the 80s, my family took a trip across the United States by Greyhound bus, which I'm not sure if I would recommend it today, but at the time it was an amazing way to see this country. Remember, I grew up in San Diego, which meant we went from San Diego nonstop to Washington, D.C. 3 days straight on the bus. Highly recommended when you're young. We reached Washington, D.C. in the early morning dawn light. The sun was just coming up. The streets were completely empty of other traffic. The only sign of those that were there were, unfortunately at the time in the 80s, the many homeless who were on the streets, who were moving out of their positions that they had occupied among the monuments and among the different symbols of our country. Washington, D.C. is an incredible city. If you've ever been to that downtown government area, hopefully you were struck that there are many similarities between it and Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, Jerusalem. And not just because they're both capital cities. I've been to many capital cities in the world, and not all of them have that same feel as both Jerusalem and Washington. Washington feels very much like it is the seat of our civic religion, of the religion of the United States of America. You have beautiful buildings that house the high priests and all of the other priests, whether they come from different states, whether they be elected nationally, who work and toil on behalf of interpreting the sacred documents of our Constitution and laws in order to make sure that the faith of the United States of America continues to be strong and continues to thrive. And whenever there are questions that are beyond those, it goes to the high priests, to the Supreme Court, where the 9 sacred judges will peer into the documents of our past while they wear their sacred robes and then pronounce what it is we should do with the laws that we have been given. But all of that aside, there is another aspect of Washington that I feel screams Jerusalem to me, and that is the proliferation of monuments and temples. Granted, our temple does not stand in Jerusalem, but you can't go far without hitting a synagogue, a church, or a mosque, or a place of historical significance. And so too, the beauty and grandeur of Washington is marked by the temples and shrines to our civic faith. Who here has not been awed by the Washington Monument, by the Jefferson Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, or by the newer monuments that dot the landscape? The different shrines to those who have fallen in our wars, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, those that are there to dedicate to our achievements, such as the Martin Luther King Memorial, as well as some of our failings, such as the memorial to the Japanese Americans who were interred during World War II. But, as this feeling strikes me, now much more as an adult than as a child, I have a Jewish question. Are these shrines and temples to our great people in particular, is this idolatry? Right? Have you been to the Lincoln Memorial? Does it look like a temple to Zeus? I mean, it is built deliberately in the Greco-Roman style, and there within the sacred precincts, after you have gone up the mighty steps, is a huge throne. And upon the throne is the god of the Civil War, massive, carved in stone, looking down with compassion upon the nation. And when people go there, are they just going to visit a beautiful architectural site? Are they going just to experience history? Are they going to receive strength from the keeper of the Union, from this figure, literally larger than life? If they go next door to the Washington Monument, sculpted and shaped as though it were an Egyptian obelisk, are they just remembering George Washington, General of the Continental Army, George Washington, first President of the Union? Or are they going to visit the god of the Revolutionary War? Are they going to visit the man who established the Union? When they go to Jefferson's memorial, and they see the mighty man there, again, towering 20 feet tall within the Roman domed building, are they visiting a temple, or are they visiting history? It's complicated. It's complicated, and even FDR's memorial, although it lacks the same architectural cues from idolatrous religions, still, when you go and you walk amongst the stones and walk amongst the phrases and statues, are you not visiting some form of idolatrous shrine? Like all good Jewish questions, the answer is, it depends. It depends on your intention. If you are going to visit Thomas Jefferson at his shrine because you think you are actually visiting Thomas Jefferson in his shrine, and you think that this is the God of liberty, and that there you will make your offering, make your worship, and that the God of liberty will empower you to defend liberty, that will give you strength that could otherwise not be had if you were not to stand and beseech this particular God, then you've got a problem. Then you've got a problem. You have gone a little bit too far. On the other hand, if you go and you say, look, this is Thomas Jefferson. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. And you get back in the tour bus and you move on to the next site. Look, this is the Lincoln Memorial. That's Abraham Lincoln. He was president during the Civil War. And you get back in the tour bus and you go to the next one. You've also not properly appreciated what you have experienced. And there is a place in between idolatrous worship and tourist indifference. And that place is called understanding. Because these people who have gone before us, whether they be enshrined as giant statues, or whether they be memorialized in the war monuments, they must be appreciated as people. As people that in one way or another have helped to build this nation. As people, they all have flaws. As people, they are all subject to the same human frailties. But each one of them helped hold the ladder that allowed our nation to climb higher than it was before. Each one of them helped lay that ladder against the wall of our faith and our traditions in this country so that we could move a little bit closer to the ideals that we have set for ourselves. That does not mean they were among the pantheon at the top of the ladder, for they are not gods. But it does mean that they were pointing us in the right direction. Maybe not perfectly each and every one of them. Maybe not perfectly each and every one of them each and every day. And certainly not in each and every activity. But we can see what they have given us, what they have bequeathed to us, and how high we have risen, thanks to their sacrifice and their service. And that is a lesson we need to remember in Judaism as well. In Judaism, do we worship the rabbis who came before us? Do we say, oh, mighty Rabbi Akiva, great Akiva who tried to bring redemption in his day, and who gave us insights into understanding how the Torah should be fulfilled? Please give me wisdom. No one here lights a candle for Rabbi Akiva? Good. Nobody here lights a candle for the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism? Good. But do we forget these people? Do we only think of them as footnotes in our history books? I should hope not. Because each of them, in their own time, their own generation, their own place, helped to hold that ladder so that we could be here right now at this time. And each of them deserve to be enjoyed and appreciated for the contributions that they have made. And yes, also contextualized and understood the limitations of each of them in their own time and their own place. After all, Rabbi Akiva, very famously, was on the wrong side of history when he thought that Bar Kokhba would lead to the redemption of our people. And the Baal Shem Tov, too, certainly drew heavily from Eastern European folk religion, not only from Judaism. But each of them did help our people ultimately rise higher. In Judaism, we do not worship those who hold the ladder, but we don't forget them either. And in Judaism, we do not worship the ladder itself. We worship what is at the top. This is why in Judaism we do not worship the Torah. We use the Torah to serve and worship God. In Judaism we do not worship the synagogue. We use the synagogue to worship and serve God. And time again, if you feel your concentration slipping, if you feel yourself focusing entirely on the symbols that we have, the ladders which help us ascend, you must refocus your eyes and your spirit upward. Not upward in a just literal sense, but upward within the soul. That we are here to connect, to understand, and to bring God into our world through the tools that have been given to us by those who have held the ladder before us. And in turn, by our continued efforts, by our continued work, we are holding the ladder for the next generation, and they for the one after. And each rung brings us closer to heaven. May it come speedily in our day. Shabbat Shalom.